Bellingham Toastmaster. True, nervous, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. He never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of the door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay on the bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, inquiring how he passed the night. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps he heard me, for he moved suddenly in the bed as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch, with thick darkness. I had my head in. I was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I had my head in and was about to open the lantern. I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening. Presently, I heard a slight groan. I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no! I knew the sound well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. When I waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the sense? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier to courage. But even yet, I refrained and I kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. And now, a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor, pulled the heavy bed over them. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the precarious corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, You will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, the arms, the legs. Then I took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock. Still dark, as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to the chamber. I showed them his treasures. Secure, undisturbed, in the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room. I desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I, myself, in the wild precariousness of my perfect triumph, placed my own feet upon the very spot which reposed the corpse of the victims. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached. I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and chatted. The ringing became more distinct until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased. It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. Yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I foamed, I raved, I swore, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Oh no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror, but anything was better than this agony. Anything more tolerable than this derision. I felt I must scream or die. Villains, I shrieked. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, it is the beating of his hideous heart. Madam Toastmaster.